In the meantime, if you need to download the plugin, you can go to the Depthkit website and you can log in with your own account. You don't have to sign up, totally free. You're going to go to account and then downloads. And then this is what you'll be looking for here, the Depthkit Unity plugin. So I'm in Unity. I'm just going to do a brand new project for the sake of starting fresh. And Unity likes to take its time with everything, so whenever this decides to open.
Baby show. That was cool. It's just 3.
Cool. I don't need this new version. So I'll just talk about this interface kind of really briefly. In terms of bringing in any third-party packages or assets or even images, geometry, all of that is going to live in your assets. So those of you who might have a Depthkit clip that's kind of on your desktop or exported, you do need to bring anything in to live within your Unity project so that you can pull from that.
Does that assets folder represent a folder on your hard drive, or is it like a virtual folder inside Unity?
We can go into the Unity project. So it's the Unity project has a bunch of stuff in it, really, and the assets folder is the one that you'll be working with most. So let's see where I put this. I don't even remember where it lives. I think. I don't even remember where I just saved this. Hold on just a moment. Well, you know what, I'll do this. Okay, so this is the project that I just made, Depthkit demo, and this is everything that lives within your new Unity project. Packages, assets, you can really just concentrate on the assets folder. And anything that you might want to bring in now, you can just copy and paste it into here if you're not liking the Unity interface. Anything that you plop in this assets folder will then migrate and populate in Unity, which is a quick way to do it. Or we can just go to the assets panel here, do a right click, and do either import a package or import a new asset. So whichever works for you. And before I do that, I'll just do kind of a quick finish up of the interface tour. Your hierarchy here is where you are going to be working in your scene. We already have a main camera, a default light, but all of the game objects that you're going to be bringing in. And a game object is just, you know, the object that you're working with in the scene. It could be anything from a piece of geometry that you just exported from Maya or Cinema 4D. It could be a video, be like a whole, you know, scene geometry mesh. You'll be pulling it into this hierarchy here to develop your scene. So we have the scene view. This is not the easiest thing to navigate. Alt and mousing around is going to be the friendly way to get around. You can zoom in and out with the middle mouse scrolling. That's pretty basic. By default, it opens this game view. This is just the view that your camera is seeing. I find it kind of annoying. It's always there. It's not super helpful until you actually have the scene going. And then the inspector here. This is going to be where you're going to primarily be working. When you click on a game object, so let's take the main camera for example, it opens up all of the parameters that we'll have to work with about the camera. So, you know, the camera's pretty basic, but if I want to change the skybox to a solid color, it's now changed to blue, and I've seen that through my camera view in the game panel here.
So the game panel shows you the view from where the little camera is in the scene?
Yes, yeah.
So why isn't it on blue in the scene?
It's because this, in the scene view, it's just still on the default. This is more your workspace, and it's not always like a completely accurate view of your scene, the skybox being one example.
What is a skybox?
It's the kind of the world that you're currently in this 3D space. If I were to bring in, I don't have any fun skyboxes, but if I were to bring in...
skybox as in the surrounding what's going on around.
Yeah.
So it's an image, it's a 360 image.
Exactly. So I could bring in any 360 image and pull this in and do my own custom skybox. But for now, we'll stick with the default. Cool. So those are kind of the basics for the interface. A couple other...
What are the controls for actually moving this scene around?
Sure, yeah. So Alt, and then just clicking and spinning around is the easiest way, or Alt, click and drag. You can also Alt, click and drag with your middle mouse button as well. And then zooming in and out again with just the middle mouse scrolling. I realized does anyone here need a mouse? Because it's a pain in the ass on a trackpad. Yeah? Okay. Let me see if I can grab one really quick, just because you're going to get stuck. Whenever you have problems, and you will have problems, it will be reported in the console. You'll have like build errors or any like weird warning that's popping up. You have maybe a piece of geometry that's not being accepted. Your console will tell you what's going on. Oh yeah, you found one. We can go more into, well, no, I'll pause there for interface stuff.
So I saw earlier when you were moving around, you were like, so Alt and click, that changes your view on the scene, right? And then Alt and right click zooms in and out. What was the Alt in the middle? Oh,
yeah, if you just want to kind of click a position and drag yourself around. Okay. And the middle mouse also for just zooming in and out. And there's also this little kind of directional toggle here. If you just want to change your view this way, I can move around based on this kind of the grid system here. I don't even know where I landed myself. Cool. So I'm going to import the package. So, and everyone has the Unity package on their computers at this point. No one's waiting on that. Great. You do want to make sure that, so once you've downloaded it, it's just uncompressed. So go ahead and uncompress it just to prep for import. And so I'm in my assets panel. I'm going to right click, do import package, and then custom package. And I'm going to move painfully slowly just so everyone can see this. If I'm moving too slowly, just shout at me. And so here I already have downloaded the Depthkit plugin and the look that we're going to be using later. I'm just going to do the plugin for right now. And what I'm looking for is the Unity package, which always has this little Unity icon here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and hit open. And this gives me with a dialog box of everything that is being imported right now. All of this just keep to default and just hit import. You don't have to worry too much about it. Cool. So that's imported, and Depthkit at this point is ready to use. So, and everyone, sorry, there's some of you who don't have clips to import. We're gonna, actually no, you're gonna use the sample clip. Okay, so at this point, I'm ready to bring in exported Depthkit clips into Unity. And I'll do that by, again, right-clicking in Assets and Import New Asset. And you can just go to wherever you have your assets. And I, of course, don't actually have any on this machine to import. But you will be importing all three: the video file, the metadata, which is a text file, and then the poster image, which is a PNG. Bring all three of those into your assets folder.
Do you want some assets on a thumb drive?
It's okay. I have them from the sample scene.
Okay.
I'm sorry, there's a
The mask.
The mask is not going to be useful at this point.
Okay.
If we go into examples.
Yeah, so for those of you who need an asset to work with, in the Depthkit folder, examples, and then the clips folder here, I have 3 people who you can use as example assets.
Clips, right?
Yep.
And then do we just select any of those or just all of them?
So you can basically, if everyone is ready to bring a character into your scene, you're going to go up to the hierarchy, right-click, select, yeah, and then select Depthkit clip here. So at this point, you now have a game object that is a Depthkit clip in your scene. And you can also do that just through the menu item here, again, by doing create Depthkit clip. So either way. So now we have an empty asset to populate with our own clips. In this case, I'm going to use Heba. These are one of our example assets. And I can bring these files in 2 different ways. I can click the little circle here and search for it, which I'll do now because I've labeled it with just her name. So that is her metadata text file. I'll go through and do the same thing for the poster image. And the poster image is totally optional, but it is helpful because when the clip is not playing, it's still visible in the scene view. So just a handy thing to have. And then if I didn't name my files and have no idea what they're called, I can also just take this poster image and drag it in.
Oh.
And then I'll do that for the video file as well. I realize it's hard to determine the video file in Unity because it does not include file extensions. That's just an annoying Unity thing. But if you click on it, you can see here that it is a video, all that jazz.
Well, down at the bottom, right?
Down at the bottom, yeah. So we can see, yeah.
.mp4.
Yep.
Yeah.
So again, I'll go back to my clip so that I can select that video and drag it into the video player component down here. And so once all 3, or at least the metadata and the video, are imported or assigned in your clip, this will turn green. So if anyone currently has a red notification that their clip is not set up, let me know. You have that? Okay.
Is it my video player that's set up? This is the only thing that's not set up.
Oh, you just need your video file here.
Oh, so it will be this file
Mhm.
here. Oh, okay, cool.
All right, cool. So at this point, I'm ready to play. I'm going to go over, since I got lost in my scene view here, I'm going to double click on the clip. Brings me right back to the game object, which is really handy when you get lost in the scene. I'm also going to get rid of my gizmos because that drives me insane. Oops. I'm gonna first, for anyone who's using an example asset, you'll see that they're rotated because they were shot vertically. You can go over to the transform here, which is just gonna control orientation, position, scale of your game object, and do -90, or 90 rather, in Z, which will make her the correct orientation.
Sorry, what did you click on to get the, so you're transforming what, the Depthkit clip?
Yeah, so I'll go through and talk about these various components. So again, I'm in the inspector and this is where I'm doing all of the work. So it starts out with a transform, which is position, rotation, scale of any given game object. This will be on any item that you have in your scene. Box collider, this is kind of the bounding box here that you see, and just represents the space that your object is taking up. This will be helpful, well, I don't want to go too deep into box colliders, but that's the basics of it. And then we have the Depthkit clip editor here, which again, I'll just kind of quickly run through the settings, just to talk about what else you can be working with. Video player, for today, totally fine to stick with the Unity video player. It's free, you don't have to import anything else. We have a second option of using AV Pro as a video player. This is a separate external package. And feel free if anyone wants to talk to me about that later on, because it does have some benefits in terms of performance. If anyone here is like really gung-ho about building to, XYZ, building to like Android, and you have a lot of clips that you want to be playing at once, AV Pro is helpful in that it has more performance-related options. So it could be handy for like more advanced scenes and projects where you need to balance how the clips are running. It is a separate purchase, yeah. So for the, your standard project, totally fine to stick with the free Unity player. We just provide that as an option for those who need more like power. So for the look section, again, this is just going to say photo look for now because we have not brought in any external Depthkit looks. We'll circle back to that after this walkthrough. Metadata source type. This will be, we can leave the set text asset. You would only need to change it to file path if you need it to, if you had it living somewhere else in your project. I'm not going to go into that right now because there's not a time where you need to worry about that. We'll leave it at the default. Cleanup filters. So spike removal is great for cleaning up these edge artifacts here. You can see around Heba's foot. We lovingly call these lasers, they just look funky. So I'm going to increase the spike removal to reduce some of those. With this one, you have to be careful because it can also erode interior data. What this looks for is the spike removal looks for a very long triangle. And what this is doing is it happens to be removing these triangles in the interior as well. So it's somewhat of a balance. Every capture is going to be a little bit different. So I'll kind of leave this at 0.5 for right now so I don't erode any extra data. And then edge choke is going to be tightening in the edges, very similar to an edge choke in a mask. And what this does is I'll zoom in real close here on her shoulder, if you guys can see this okay. So that's with nothing. You can see we have kind of a little black outline here, and I want to get rid of that and tighten that up. So I will apply the edge choke. This is handy for when you've done the refinement mask and you've exported your asset and you maybe realized that your refinement mask was including too much information. Just tightens it up a little bit.
So the image you're looking at, this is the poster image.
This is the poster image.
If
Yeah.
you wanted to use a different frame as a reference point for doing spike removal?
Mm-hmm.
Can you advance it, or is it
For something like that, I would just do it while playing,
okay.
so I can see what it looks like.
Right.
So,
Okay.
that looks good there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was doing.
And then, so a really annoying trait about Unity is that if you're playing, it resets. So what you want to do is either, if you have a setting that you like while you're playing, you go up to the little settings here and copy component, because once you hit the play button again, it just reverts back to what you had previously. So now what I had while I was playing, I'm going to paste these component values. Oh my God, that didn't work. All right, pretend I did not say that. I'm going to say in a general note.
Write it down on a piece of paper and-
Well, no, so this is actually a bug that I'm going to write down right now and harass our team about to fix.
Can you just explain the problem again?
Yeah, so when you're playing, when your scene is playing and you want to make edits, any component that you go to change, whether it's transform here, so I'll just go.
While the play button is.
Exactly. So I'm scaling her up in play mode. And if you have not remembered what this value is, when you hit stop, it reverts back to what you previously had. This is just a Unity thing that is a total pain. But in a normal situation, the way around that is to, while I'm playing, if I make that edit and I like it, I want to keep it, I go to the little toolbox tab or little icon here, copy that component information, and that's just copying what this transform component, any information that's just in that component box, so that when I hit play, it reverts. I can now paste that information back in there, so it saves.
So it works in Unity, but because
For some reason,
you did the bit that you wrote. Okay.
Yeah.
So is the where it says Depthkit clip and Depthkit photo look, that's all your plugin, right?
Yes.
And the others are default properties of any Unity component.
Right. All right, so the next setting down here in my Depthkit photo look script, mesh density. This is basically the quality of how the mesh is represented in the scene. By default, it's medium. Highest is pretty nice, although that just messed with my spike removal. Highest is a great place to have your mesh density. The reason why you might want to lower it is if you're building to mobile. So if you are making a Unity build and building it to your iPhone or Android, you probably have to reduce it to medium or low for performance purposes. But for now, I'll keep it at highest. And then I'll talk about the video player component here. Beyond pulling in your video file, there's not much you need to do. I will usually hit loop for the sake of just letting it play on repeat. But other than that, I don't need to worry too much about it. Talk about audio for a sec. You can apply whatever audio that you have recorded in Unity using audio source. I personally don't like doing that because I find that it's really easy for files to fall out of sync in Unity. So that's why I do recommend taking your Unity video, bringing it into Premiere, and just laying back whatever audio that you have in Premiere. And if anyone here wants to do that as well, we can maybe circle back to that walkthrough at the end for anyone who might be interested. Right-click, import package, custom package. And then I'm just going to go back and select the 0 days look. Quick note, you cannot import a look on its own. It needs to have a base of the Depthkit plugin. If you try to import it alone, your scene will not work. So I'm going to import all of this. Yeah. If we're back, now it's imported. We're good to go. If we go back to the clip here, you'll know that it's imported because when you go over to the settings and you're under look in the drop down, you should be able to switch to 0 days. And it'll automatically switch to this default setup of a bunch of points and lines on your subject. And if there are errors here or you don't see that, let me know. Giant purple box? That happens. That happens. So what that means is I'm actually going to open up the documentation here because for those of you who are on a Mac, I'm going to explain this. It's just a build setting, which is, where am I? Sorry, I'm getting lost, you guys. Okay, so for Mac users right now, we're going to go to File. Actually, wait, where am I going? File Build Settings. Player Settings. And then what we want to do is uncheck Auto Graphics API for Mac.
Can you repeat that?
We're just going to deselect Auto Graphics API for Mac right here.
So if you go to File,
Okay. Is that it?
And then we're going to take Metal and remove it with just this little minus there. And if your pink box does not go away with that, let me know. So automatically for my clip, when I switch the look here to 0 days, it adds this extra 0 days look and a set of components that we're going to be working with. So we have this default setup of a bunch of points and lines. I'll talk about how this works. It's very simple in terms of, yes, they are point and line layers, but they're designed to be blended and layered and built in the way that you layer layers in Photoshop. It's kind of a building process where you can really get funky with it, but it starts in a very basic place that we can, just get started with. So I'll start with the primary script component here. Again, we have mesh density. I'm going to put that at highest just because I'd like it to look nice in my scene. Self-occlusion is exactly what it sounds like, and I'll show you what that looks like here. It's just, do you want to occlude or not occlude these overlapping elements in your character? Generally, I like to enable that it kind of maintains like the proper form of the person, but depends on what you're going for.
Can you tick that again?
Yep.
You can
So
see
like
through her to the other parts of her.
Mm-hmm. So how holographic do you really want it to be is really the question. So we have a couple layers here to talk about. The fill layer is going to be your base layer. That's the one right here. I'm going to deactivate the point and line for right now and just talk about this fill layer. We have opacity and blending to play with, but let's say I wanted to animate points and lines back and forth to get back to the photo look and then get to a glitchy look. I can use my fill layer for this because it can essentially start off as your photo base. And this is the layer that all of the following layers will blend with. So alpha, this is just going to be my true color. We have add. This is a little bit embarrassing, but multiply is broken. I'm sorry. Don't even try it. And screen. So, and then opacity here. I will mention that let's say you're only doing a fill layer by itself. It will blend with your background. So if you have a black background and you've set your blend mode to screen, you just have to be aware of how that is going to blend with black, for example. So the same basic blending concepts exist But if you're wondering why a layer might look strange, it might be just, that it's blending in that way with your existing background. So these two other layers, we have the point and the line. They're pretty similar. I'm just going to activate the line right now and disable the fill. And just by doing these checkboxes, I can hide any of these components to make this a little bit easier. And I'm going to get real close in here. So again, I have the same blending modes, orientation for, just the orientation of the lines. It's hard to see for you guys, isn't it? Line count. You can totally just play with these however you like. I recommend, if you're doing a line layer, to up your line density to maximum. It just looks a lot better. It fills in the 3D form of your character. And again, we have opacity and width. We can do a line sprite here. I'll show you what that looks like with just the default. Let's pull like a circle. So I can get creative with the images that are, going to be populated through these lines.
How did you do that?
So in your line sprite field, with a circle, I'm just going to search. And these are default sprites that are just in Unity. And you can select any of them here. And the same basically goes for the point layer as well. Difference here being if you want to change the aspect ratio of your point. We're getting like real nitty gritty here if we're talking about point aspect ratios, but this is what we're talking about. So here we go. Just to like play with it, get funky. Where this comes in handy is when you want to start animating the layer. So animating the aspect ratio back and forth so it looks like you've got a glitchy artifact. And again, I can fill in this sprite image as well. So very basic as individual layers, but once you just basically, I'm going to hit add line and add point. I can just do that all day long. And then tweak each layer to really get just keep growing with these effects. So you can do something as simple as a point cloud with just a single point layer, or we can just go crazy with layering and stuff. Cool. So what we want for animation is the Unity timeline. The timeline is a really wonderful tool in Unity. You're going to use it for a lot of different things. So we're only going to scratch the surface of timeline today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Window. And every version of Unity, they move this. So this might be different for if you guys are on different versions. But currently it lives under, at least in 2018, sequencing and timeline, and it's just going to, yes, and I'm just going to move this down to my bottom tab because that's where I like to work. Is everyone working in a version of Unity that's either 2017 or 2018? Okay. If you're not, it's fine, but this will vary between like beta versions and stuff. So this is where I'm going to animate. I'm going to hit create because I want to create an animation component. And I'm just going to name this Heba because that is who I'm working with now. And automatically it's going to live in your assets folder. And again, everything that you do in this project will on some level be in your assets folder, at least as the parent folder. So right off the bat, this gives me a more traditional timeline to work with. This has changed since I worked with it. So I've selected my Depthkit clip, and I just hit this little record button. What this is going to do is everything that I fiddle with is going to be recorded in my animation timeline. So I'm just going to keep this really simple for the moment. I'm going to go over to my point layer, and I'm at the start here. I'm going to bring these points really, really low. And lower, yeah, I'll stick to that for now. And then I'm going to just drag to the end here. And because I'm now editing these and they're being recorded, these parameters have turned red, so I know what is changing and what I'm working with. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm going to stop recording. And if I scrub through, it's now recorded that animation.
And where's the sub file of that animation if I wanted to just pull that up?
Yeah, sure. So it will so outside of the timeline component, I can go back to project, and this is the animation file that I just created, labeled Heba here, that lives in my asset folder. So for example, if I click on that here, I have the frame rate information, duration, things like that.
Just so you know, that's exactly what I was talking about before.
Cool, great. I'm glad.
More or less.
Yeah, sure. Cool. And then I'll go back to my timeline here, and basically, so now that I'm not recording, I've seen that these parameters are like a light blue color, meaning that they have been animated in the timeline. I can go through and do that with all parameters. Let's see, where's the best way to do that? I can do that in, let's see, I want to keep this pretty simple. There are many ways to interact with the timeline. I don't want to go over all of them. I'll just kind of go with the basic of how I like to work. Because like I said, this is a pretty deep tool in Unity.
Do you have also a learning platform for this specific plugin?
So at the moment, I have a page in the documentation for working with the Unity timeline and animating a clip. It's not super in-depth, but it will get you started. And I will, like I shared the documentation last night, I'll share these as well this evening. We also have all of these, setting up your project, importing. Everything that we just went over this afternoon is also here. I will say, again, with every version of Unity, timeline changes. With 2019 that is now available, I probably have to go and update this. So if you guys noticed anything strange, that's probably why. And then basically I can just go back and hit record and go through the rest of these parameters and scrub throughout the timeline to basically place whichever setting I would like to animate.
So if you click on each parameter and play with it, you'll see what it is, right?
Exactly. So I'll do opacity, I'll scrub to the end, go back and increase the opacity. And because it's now indicated as red, I know that that was just recorded. Let's see, I'll go to, so a thing to keep in mind, you want to be aware of when you're in recording mode. So I notice here I want to go and now add line animation, but I see that my clip is disabled. If I click on that now, it's going to get confused and think that I'm trying to record enabling the clip. So I want to stop recording before I go and do that. So now I can actually go and enable the clip, and when I hit record again, it just records the animation that I want to use.
You seem to have recorded that.
I did record that. Yeah, that's a bad example. But then I can go in and do the line count, line density, stuff like that.